Gaurang Shah, Senior Vice President, Geojit Financial Services, is here today to help us understand what is the directions that markets seem to be taken. Gaurang, thank you so much. Pleasure having you back on News 9 on the morning brief after a while. Just want to understand, yesterday, of course, was the Nifty 50 expiry, so the kind of cuts that we saw were understandable. But this morning, we aren't really seeing too much momentum. What is holding back investors at this moment?
Thank you so much, Kartik, for having me back again in this show. It's good to speak to you on your channel. A small regularity disclosure that whatever recommendations that we are going to share this morning on your show are a part of our research team recommendations, fundamental side, long term. Our company, Geojit or I, we do not have any personal investments, no financial interest, no conflict of interest, but we share similar advice with our clients. They might have their investment interest. So I think markets, Karthik, it's good to see a lighter shade of green rather than a deep red. What we've been witnessing since the time we hit the new all-time high, I think the markets have given up the steam and the enthusiasm, and we are way below the all-time highs that we made of about 26,300 as marginally above that. A reason one to many, continuous relentless selling from the FIs, and of course, despite of the strong domestic data points that we had on the GDP, on the inflation, as well as a quarter basis cut, 25 basis point cut on the interest front, markets don't look so excited. I think markets are taking a breather. And historically, Karthik, whenever the markets have made a new all-time high, they go into a little bit of profit booking sideways, range-bound territory, make a strong base, and then try to move upwards. So I guess we should be ready to spend the rest of the year around these levels, marginally above these levels. And possibly next year could bring in some more cheer. 10th January onwards, we'll have the curtain raiser for the third quarter opening, earnings season. And of course, then we'll have the budget.
Absolutely. But Gaurang, I want to understand, is there any impact that the Indian markets are likely to witness towards end of the week or early next week, given the stance that the US Federal Reserve takes? Is that something, let's say it goes ahead and gives that much awaited rate cut to the US economy, is that something which is likely to impact the Indian markets one way or another?
So Karthik, I think largely 25 basis point cut, according to whatever my networking sources tell me, is priced into the market. And I don't think, I guess, I'm not too sure, but this is going to be one of the last policies that Mr. Powell is going to announce as Fed chair. Next year, early, as the president of United States of America has been vocal enough that he's going to find a new replacement. Don't know how things are going to shape up over there. But his commentary is something that everyone would be eager to listen into, Karthik, given the state of economy and affairs in the United States of America, tariff-related inflationary pressures, if any, and of course, more importantly, it's going to be the data on the employment front, which will possibly be eagerly awaited. So I don't think there's going to be a major reaction to our markets or global markets on fallback of the Fed announcement.
All right. Gaurang, you also mentioned right at the start of the show that that your advice is fundamentally long-term in nature. So for the retail investor, which has pretty much held fort and held the markets from, from whatever catastrophe that could have happened with the FPS pulling out, for the retail investors looking at the long-term story at the end of 2025, getting into 2026, are there any sectors that you can pinpoint which should be on their radar, which they should focus on? Because it seems that the bellwethers of yesteryears, the IT services pack, for example, is not delivering, much returns for the long-term investor, at least this entire calendar year. Are there sectors on the horizon which you think investors should be watchful of as they enter 2026?
Sure, Karthik. So I think despite of the relentless FI/FPI selling, we managed to make a new all-time high, right? So that's the internal strength, inherent strength that we have in terms of the emerging market and one of the most fastest growing economy as far as the EM basket is concerned.
Right.
So yes, there are about 4 or 5 sectors that we have listed down, not with respect to any short term, medium term or budget outlook, because a lot of people have been asking me, what is your budget outlook and what does one look at? So budget is a very short term phenomena. It happens every year, Karthik, as we all know, but longish. I think in the entire BFSI segment, that is your private sector bank, public sector bank, strong NBFCs, defense, cap goods, engineering, capital market related stocks, autos, And the sector that you mentioned, which has been underperforming, but we are very optimistic, that is IT. And
Okay.
second quarter was a shade better than what the street estimated. So
Okay.
these are some 5 or 6 sectors one should look at.
All right. So BFSI, defense, auto, well, these seem to be some of the sectors that Gaurang Shah is bullish on. What about what we are seeing on, the buzz on IPOs? In fact, right now, let's cut across to Vidit Atre. Meesho is expected to list in just a few minutes or so from now. He's speaking live at NSE. Let's quickly listen in, Gaurang, to what Vidit Atre is saying before we come back and discuss the IPO story.
And I can go on and on and on. This team believed in things that no one else before them believed in. So this IPO is your victory. This listing is the compound interest of all your hard work. Thank you so much. I think today is a big day when we transition from being a private startup to now a public company. And that expands our responsibility in a big way. Until now, we answered to a few shareholders, private shareholders. Now we answer to all of you. We answer to that retail investor in a small town who bought our few shares because they believe in the future of Indian consumption, in the future of Bharat consumption. So I think as the management team of Meesho, on behalf of all of them, I want to take a pledge today. I want to tell all of them, we will operate with transparency, we will operate with governance, and most importantly, we'll operate with a long-term view.
All right, Gaurang Shah continues to be with us. Gaurang, interesting words coming, big words really, talking about governance, talking about transparency, and talking about India's booming consumption there. So Meesho IPO, I mean, GMP at about 47 rupees, that's about 32% or so gain, listing day gain expected, for investors who have been allotted those shares. But overall, there's also a concern that IPOs, a flurry of IPOs through November and December has pretty much sucked out a lot of cash from the market, which could have otherwise been invested back in listed entities. And that may have possibly given a fillip to stock markets. Is that a sort of realistic, justified theory?
I wouldn't say completely, but maybe marginally, Kartik.
Okay.
And look, even before this, we've had a history of IPOs hitting the market with larger, funds to be garnered from the IPO market. But even then, despite of that strong primary market, the secondary market has been able to survive.
Okay.
And it is not very, very long ago, Kartik, that we made a new lifetime high. So I don't think there is any dearth of liquidity in the market. One may put out a case maybe to marginally credit the IPO flurry. And this week, in fact, there is a flood of IPO and there is a lot of listing also
That's
of
right.
already the IPOs which have been concluded.
That's right.
So I don't think there is any liquidity dearth. Maybe, a little bit, like I mentioned, historically, every time the market has made a new all-time high, they go into a little bit of profit booking range-bound mode.
All right. I want to just stick to the Meesho IPO for a minute because this is another sort of pure play consumer facing brand. We've seen Grow, we've seen Lenskart, we've seen a lot of consumer facing brands really come on to the stock markets and have their stocks listed. Meesho pretty much seems to be one of the only pure play e-commerce companies in India which has gone ahead and listed itself, been willing to open its books to public scrutiny, and Vidit Atre there talking about transparency and governance issues. Now, Meesho as a bet, or India's e-commerce market as a bet, is this something that you at Geojit are bullish about, the India e-commerce story?
So first of all, Kartik, I think it's very pleasing to hear the kind of words that we just listened into in terms of corporate responsibility, ethics, and transparency. Yes, we had a subscribe recommendation for Meesho from a long-term point of view. And one of the things that I like the most about the IPO is there is no hidden cost, or there is no, unlike your platform fees or your delivery fees or handling fees. I don't think Meesho has any of them. So that's a lot of transparency over there. And I think what the customer sees on the screen is the value he or she pays finally when he or she places the order. So I guess, yes, we have been positive of new age high-tech companies, but at the same time, in the same breath, Kartik, just to caution the viewers of your channel, Don't rush into all the IPOs with huge expectation and listing gains. Some of them may disappoint you because every business, every management valuation differs.
Right. So for valuation specifically on Meesho, what would be the closest competitors, Gaurang, that you would recommend for people to watch out for those PEs? Would it be an Eternal and a Swiggy, or should they take cue from, let's say, the Amazons of the world listed globally?
So let Amazon come and get itself listed. We'll comment then. But yeah, from the other names that you mentioned, Eternal is something that we've been extremely positive. Other than that, Policy Bazaar, Paytm, Nikea, FNS e-commerce, that is, we remain positive on all these names, Kartik.
All right, Gaurang, well, let us leave it at that. But thank you so much for all your time and your inputs this morning. Pleasure having you back here with us on News 9 on Morning Brief at 9.